Hey everybody, welcome back to Daytime. My co-host has moved just to the left of me. Ange Dacey is here. She's a self-discovery expert. Welcome, I would say, to the show, but you've been here since the beginning.
Thank you.
So welcome to the couch.
Hey, thanks. I still like this couch. It's good.
Well, it's your home, right? That's
It is. I feel safe here.
Familiarity, if that's a word.
It's very comfortable.
Let's talk about, because we have an interesting thing today. Usually we talk about color, but we're digging much more deep now.
Yeah.
And we're talking about codependency.
Yeah.
A topic I'm sure many people maybe even shy away from because they're afraid of seeing themselves in the topic itself. Would that be accurate?
Totally. I think with codependency, a lot of people hear that word and they don't really understand what it means, and they don't really know that they're living it. So I felt it was an important one that we could talk about on Daytime.
Well, let's talk about it because I don't really know what it means,
Okay.
and I'm afraid that I might be living it. So what is codependency?
You know what? Chances are you probably are, no offense, because there's about 40 million North Americans that live it. And interestingly enough, 8 million of those they've actually brought together to say that they suffer with depression because of it. So what happens with codependency is that when we've been hurt in a relationship, especially young in life, and we don't know how to cope, we end up jumping into a role. And there's 3 main roles. And then that's how we live our life for the rest of our lives. So we jump into being the rescuer, we jump into being the abuser, or we jump in being the victim. Okay, so right away you're probably like, oh yeah, I so know this person who's a victim. Or, Mr. So-and-so was my white knight rescuer. But what happens is that it's really quite interesting, and you can look at your relationships, whether it be with a coworker, it could be with a friend, it could be with a partner, and say, where am I playing the codependency game? Okay, or I say it's almost like a dance. When I teach, I like to picture a triangle.
Yep.
And on every point is one of them. So rescuer, victim, abuser.
Yep.
Now the interesting thing is if you picture the triangle, you can't play 2 roles at once. So if I was in a relationship with you, we both can't be the abuser at the same time.
Because then you got 2 of the same.
You got it. So if you're an abuser, I automatically have to jump into rescuer victim mode.
Okay.
So for example, because some people are probably thinking, what's this mean? So say something happens and I'm like, now I'm going, oh, you know what, poor me. Life really sucks and I can't believe I just failed this exam. And you come on board and you go, well, I'll be the rescuer. And you'll say, you know what, hon, let's go out for dinner. You know what, I'll make you feel better. Here's some flowers. Let me brighten your day.
Yep.
Okay, you've just become the rescuer to try to get me out of my emotional state. Now, if I don't respond, you might turn into abuser and you say, well, what do you mean? I'm always here for you. How can you say that I'm not?
Right.
And you start tuning into that type of work. Is this making sense?
Yeah, no, listen, yeah.
So now if I don't want to be a victim, maybe I rescue and I say, oh no, he's upset and he's angry. So, I will go out for dinner with you. Come on, let's go. And it's this game and this dance we play that happens so easily that we don't know we're caught in it. And so what I like to do is try to get people to understand what role they're playing when. If they're in a toxic relationship, chances are it's from codependency. What can you do to get out? Because most people say, great, now I know I'm in it. Now what? When you jump out of a triangle, what that means is that you don't engage in their emotional state.
Right.
So if I was the poor me, poor me, poor me, you'd just be like, I'm really sorry you're feeling that way today.
Right.
You know, hopefully tomorrow is a better day. Their stuff, not mine. And you can still show compassion, you can still show love without going, how am I going to fix this and save her? Because that's when we end up with troubles.
Is there a consistency in the role? Like, are most people, if they say are the abuser, consistently saying the abuser role? Or is it very likely that they're just continue rotating? I mean, maybe it's both?
There's usually a dominant role, okay? So you'll see that someone's an abuser more or rescuer more, but you can't stay in that forever. Because if your partner or friend or coworker, whoever decides they're going to play that role, you got to jump out. It's like a dance, okay? So you're always dancing, so you can't have 2 people doing the exact same thing. One's got to jump out.
One's got to lead, one's got to follow. So looking at that then, would it be safe to say that, how do I say this? If someone is in the triangle and they leave the triangle, are they more likely to fall back into the triangle because of that, say, consistency of being one of the 3 components?
Great question. What ends up happening when you start to jump out, because again, this is about self-discovery, right? So when you start understanding what roles you're playing and you start changing those roles, for one, you're going to really tick off your dance partner because that person is very used to you playing a certain role. So what they'll do is they'll go, what do you mean Jeff jumped out? I'm going to pull him back in. So all of a sudden they're going to do whatever they can. They're going to bump up, the ante on the abuser, victim, or rescue role, so that you go, oh, geez, I'll just come back in and I'll keep playing. It's easier, right? It's comfort zone. It's a difficult thing because you will rattle their cages and shake them up because they're not used to that. They're used to you being this person. And then all of a sudden when you go, I'm not playing that game anymore, I'm not going there, What do you mean you're not going there? This is what we always do, right? This is how we play.
There becomes a disconnect, doesn't there, between the relationship because someone's exited the role play, if you will.
Yes. Yes. So it takes some time. It doesn't mean that all those relationships are going to fall apart.
Yeah.
But there needs to be shifts happening so that you're not engaging in, again, that emotional disruption.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I think about relationships with people that I know, and when someone's been, say, cheated on, and then they're the victim, and the person leaves, they go to extreme victimism, complete depression, and locking themselves up in their room.
Yeah.
Teenagers. But the point is that
it
sort of happens. So if you identify yourself as one of those three characters, how do you identify when you've sort of crossed the line and now you're going to the extreme part of that role?
Well, hopefully you identify it before you hit extreme. I think regardless where on the path you identify it, that's the key, is identifying it. We always say awareness is the key, right? So if you are aware, whoa, I am playing big time victim role, then you can start making shifts to come out of that. My concern too is that if that person's playing that role and doing that dance and they're very comfortable in it, then what role are you playing as their friend or coworker or partner? So are you trying to rescue them? Are you automatically knocking on their door? Come on, I made you dinner, come on out. What are you trying to do to get them out of their situation? Because you're just uncomfortable with where they are.
Yeah,
so
that's all it is.
That's all it is.
How do you, do you have to look back and sort of, and I guess this is probably the broad scope, to identify where in your life it sort of clicked that you have to be the abuser, that you have to be the victim, that you have to be the rescuer?
Yeah, you know what, it's a sad thing, but I think it's just the way we're brought up. And it's not to put blame anywhere, it's just to say a lot of the times this is how people deal with their hurt and their pain. We're not always taught how to handle emotional issues, so we find a way to cope. And this is the way to cope. And so a lot of people will say, oh, I never realized how codependent I am with my mother. Like, she relies on me for everything, and I'm always rescuing her. If she can't make it to the mall, I'm driving her. It's little things like this.
It's funny because you automatically think about relationships, but it's relationships with your mom, it's relationships with your friends. It's much more broad than that. For people at home that are watching, any courses coming up soon that they can take part in?
My Soul Sauna retreat is coming up on November 5th, 6th, and 7th, which is a 3-day intensive retreat to heal issues like this. And it's going to be in Halliburton this year. And then besides that, my facilitator course I'm hoping to start up soon. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but take a note on codependency.
Take a note on codependency. We are going to continue keeping Angela around for the rest of the show. You can check out her website, though, angeladaisy.com, for more information. We'll be right back with Ange and more Daytime. Don't go anywhere.